As a game challenge YouTuber, it is becoming increasingly more difficult to come up with original ideas or challenges that haven't already been done. It came to me as a huge surprise after looking extensively through the YouTube search bar that can you beat Fallout 3 without looting anything has not yet been done. I did find that the greatest challenge YouTuber ever, Mitten Squad, did this with Fallout New Vegas, but since I couldn't find anyone that's tried this with Fallout 3, I came to two conclusions. One is that it's already been done by a smaller channel like mine and buried in the algorithm, or two, it's actually completely impossible. I'm recording my commentary as I do each section of the run, but I can't think of any reason why this wouldn't be possible to do. But given that Fallout 3 is a game designed specifically for looting, I have no doubt that this is going to be extremely difficult. So my rules for this challenge are as follows. Rule 1, I am not allowed to loot anything under any circumstances. Rule 2, no use of glitches, cheats, exploits or console commands. And rule 3 is that I will not be changing the game difficulty. It's set at normal and that's where it's going to stay. So is everyone clear and happy with the rules? No? Great, let's get started. So my journey began much in the same way I begin every other day, screaming and covered in blood.
Let's see, are you a boy or a girl?
After taking my first steps, I opened my baby prison and read the Your Special book. I began by draining perception, charisma and agility, and distributed these points between strength, endurance and intelligence, putting the rest into luck. Dad quoted me my mother's favourite Bible passage, despite not one Bible existing in the Capital Wasteland. Now it's important to note that some items can actually be given to you in this game as a reward for quests. Notably at my birthday party I was given Grognak the Barbarian and a BB gun which I used to kill some rad roaches. I made it to class and picked Barter, Medicine and Unarmed as my major tag skills. I was awakened by Amata telling me that her dad has gone crazy after my father escaped the vault. She gave me some bobby pins and a pistol. From here on out I don't think I'll be getting any more equipment for a while as I can't pick anything up, so for now I don't want to waste bullets. I'm thinking that hand-to-hand is probably the best way to go for this run as it doesn't require any repairing or restocking. It's really not a great fighting style in Fallout 3 unless you have something on your fist such as a power glove, but I don't think I'm going to get that. I punched my way through the rad roaches as well as taking down Security Chief Hannon. Since it's still the beginning of the game, the enemies are pretty easy to deal with, but now I had a problem. How do I open the vault and get out? See, you can just convince the Overseer to give you a password to his terminal, but my charisma's at 1, so that's not going to happen. There's also the option of breaking into his cabinet and stealing the password, but this would involve looting, so I couldn't do this either. My solution was to simply hack his terminal. I attempted to fight some of the vault guards on the way out, but was quickly outnumbered, and so made a mad dash for the exit. I actually edited my character at the end, taking 2 points out of luck and putting them into charisma. I also replaced Barter with science as a major tag skill because it's going to be a lot more useful. I also replaced medicine with lockpicking as I don't think I'm going to be able to get any med packs on this run. Upon escaping Vault 101 I was able to make it to level 2. I put my science skill up to 50 and put the rest of my points into unarmed. I then took the Swift Learner perk because I want to gain levels as quickly as possible. So initially my idea was to try and get some caps together. I can do this by visiting a junkie by the name of Silver and convincing her to part with some caps. However, because my charisma and speech skill are so low, this didn't exactly go to plan and I was forced to kill her. Now this was really not a good idea because now I don't have a lot of health left and I'm very limited on ways in which I can heal. Now normally you would speak to Colin Moriarty to get some information about where your dad went. However, since I already killed Silver, he's not going to give me that information and I don't have the money to pay him. So I decided to hack his terminal instead to get the information I need. It's at this point that I've realised something very important. See, normally my next task would be to head to the GNR building, talk to 3Dog, and fix his radio tower for him. I can't do this because it requires looting. Since I can't loot the satellite dish, I can't do this quest. Not to worry because I do have a backup plan. I'm going to jump straight into the Potomac River and swim down to Rivet City. The drawback to this is that the journey was through highly irradiated water. I thought by speaking to Dr. Lee this would complete a quest and give me lots of experience, but it didn't. She did, however, further the story by telling me to go to the Jefferson Memorial Building, but first I would have to cure my radiation. In order to do this, I returned to Moira Brown in Megaton. See, Moira's working on a wasteland survival guide, and as luck would have it, radiation is one of the areas in which she needs help. So long as you're irradiated, she will cure you. I was also able to find a free bed inside of Rivet City that I could use to sleep and recover. I then headed to the Jefferson Memorial Building and engaged in combat with the super mutants outside. I knew that this whole area would have to be cleared for later on, so I might as well do it now. The fighting was absolutely brutal. At this level, super mutants aren't exactly the strongest, but my attacks do basically nothing. This is going to be a huge problem for the rest of the game because I'm taking major DPS while dealing little back. I was only just able to take out the last super mutant outside the memorial before fast travelling back to Rivet City to sleep and heal again. Heading inside the museum, I was immediately confronted by a super mutant, which I managed to take down, giving me enough experience to level up. I had to head back outside though, because this game will not let you level up while you're in danger. Upon leveling up, I poured all of my points into Unarmed and took the second point of Swift Learner. I then attempted to hack a security terminal to disable the gun turret on the roof. However, even though I have the skill to do this, I personally was not able to do it. So for now at least, I'm forced to just run past the gun turret and try and take out the super mutants without getting hit by it. I believe the turret will also hit the super mutant, so it might work to my advantage. I was able to take one of them down before turning a corner and getting blown away by another. Now initially I hadn't actually known that super mutant was there, so upon reloading I had another attempt and was able to take him down, with only a fraction of health left. I then fast travelled back to Rivet City to rest and recover again before having another attempt at hacking the terminal. This time I was actually successful. I then continued on punching my way through super mutants until I made it to the rotunda. Inside there was a normal super mutant and a super mutant brute. The regular super mutant was okay, however the brute killed me. One thing I did notice however is that I can actually knock enemies down just like in the Elder Scrolls. Reloading and taking down the first super mutant again, I'm pretty much in the same position I was last time. However, by sheer luck, I was able to take out the brute as well. It's an extremely lengthy process taking down a super mutant brute with bare fists, especially when I'm not really as strong as I'd like to be. Knocking him down certainly does help, but it's mainly relying on luck, hoping that he isn't able to hit me as I dodge left and right. After I'd finally taken him down, I was able to get my father's voice recordings telling me that he'd gone to somewhere called Vault 112. After resting and recovering at Rivet City, I fast travelled back to Vault 101 and started making my way towards Vault 112. Along the way I was attacked by mole rats and stray dogs. Along the way I found a building that I hoped would be abandoned that I could sleep in, however it turned out to be full of raiders. I got absolutely decimated by the raiders and was down to a slither of HP. After I'd taken down all the raiders I discovered that there was no bed to sleep in, so I had to fast travel back to Rivet City to sleep and start the whole journey again. Setting off again, this time I got harassed by some wild dogs and bloatflies. I was down to about half HP when I finally made it to the entrance of Vault 112. There were some mole rats waiting outside and inside to take the rest of my health. After another trip back to Rivet City to rest and recover, I made it into Vault 112 and was issued with my vault suit. I really can't see Tranquility Lane being an issue as I don't think you have to loot anything. There's also a few different ways you can complete this quest, so I guess we'll see what my options are. Upon entering Tranquility Lane, I was able to level up again, where I distributed my points between Unarmed and Speech. I also took the Intense Training perk, increasing my charisma as I'm going to need it for the Child at Heart perk later on. And speaking of children...
What good luck I have lately. I was just starting to get bored. Oh, we're going to have so much fun.
Well, if horror movies have taught us anything, it's that little girls are to be feared, and this is no exception. Betty is an absolute psychopath. So Betty will ask you to play a few games, which I kind of did go along with for a while. However, when it comes to breaking up the Rockwell's marriage, I wasn't able to do this because my speech skill wasn't good enough. There is a way to break up their marriage, however it involves picking up a rolling pin, which I'm not allowed to do, so I was forced to activate the failsafe. This will grant me an immediate exit to Tranquility Lane. Upon leaving Tranquility Lane, I leveled up again where I put all of my points into speech and took the Child at Heart perk. Once back in Rivet City, Dad spoke to Dr. Lee about restarting Project Purity. Heading back to the Jefferson Memorial, it seemed that there was a few more super mutants that I'd missed, so I'd have to clear them out first. By this point, I was relatively stronger than the first time I came here, so the super mutants weren't really that much of a struggle anymore. Once I'd finished clearing out the rotunda and the surrounding areas, my father asked me to do some light repairs on the memorial. Just as I was finishing up my repairs, the Enclave arrived to crash the party. Now, I wasn't anticipating that power-armoured Enclave soldiers would be easy to deal with, and my attacks were doing next to nothing to them. Thankfully, however, their attacks weren't actually doing that much damage to me, and I was able to take them on in one-to-one combat. I really did not anticipate this. I thought I would get vaporized instantly and would be forced to just run past everything. I'd say the hardest part about this was the temptation to loot things, because the Enclave have very expensive and good equipment that you can sell for a lot of caps. I watched my father dying, succumbing to radiation poisoning through the bulkhead window. I then made my escape with Dr. Lee and the other scientists through the underground tunnels. I convinced her that we should leave Gaza behind as he was only slowing us down. I made it through to the Brotherhood of Steel area, where they cut down all of the ghouls that were chasing me.
I know you're in there! I know you can hear me! You open this goddamn door right now!
Well then, that seemed to work. Making it inside the Brotherhood of Steel Fortress, I was able to level up again, where I put all of my points into science and took the Iron Fist perk, giving me 5 extra points of unarmed combat damage. After sleeping to recover, I spoke to Rothschild, who gave me the location of a Gek in Vault 87. First, however, I would have to travel through Little Lamplight, which is a society run by children. Normally, you would have to deal with some raiders to gain access, however, because I have the Child at Heart perk, I said his face looks like a butt and he gave me entrance. Once inside, I found a bed just outside of Murder Pass. This would be very useful for healing when fighting the super mutants that would be coming. My strategy for Murder Pass was simple enough: clear out as many super mutants as I can, and then run back to Little Lamplight to rest and heal. I can really see the damage difference with the Iron Fist perk, so I'm going to have to get the progressive perks for that as well. I came to a roadblock in Murder Pass when I encountered a super mutant brute with a minigun. Now, if he didn't have a minigun, this would not have been an issue, but it caused me a lot of problems. I was able to lure one of the super mutants round the corner where I could take them on one-on-one. That would leave the brute by himself, but I still wasn't able to kill him because now my health was too low. After running back to Little Lamplight to heal, I remembered that Amata gave me a gun at the start of the game. I could use this to shoot the minigun out of the super mutant brute's hands. I thought it was a good plan anyway until he picked it up again. So, out of nothing more than sheer frustration by this point, I ran up to him and shot it out of his hand at point blank range before punching him to death. With the biggest obstacle out of the way, I ran back to rest again before making my way slowly through the rest of the super mutants. After I cleared the room, I gained enough experience to level up again, where I distributed my points between unarmed and science, taking the second perk of Iron Fist. And with that, there was nothing left to do now but to head inside Vault 86. So, to be totally honest, by this point, I'm actually a little bit overpowered thanks to the 2 Iron Fist perks. I'm dealing significant damage against the super mutants, and they don't really seem to be a problem. After taking down another super mutant brute, I leveled up again where I put all of my points into science, and took the 3rd Iron Fist perk. By now, even the super mutant brutes were no longer a problem. Making it into the test labs, I continued to punch my way through super mutants, and I even found my first Centaur. The biggest problem with Vault 86 is there isn't really anywhere to heal. But after a bit of looking around, I found there is in fact a bedroll. So long as I actually kill everything in the area, I'll be able to use this to heal. After releasing Forks, I pretty much just hid behind him as he cleared out all the enemies on the way to the room with the Gek. Now it's worth noting that it is actually possible to get the Gek yourself, however this would involve looting, and using Forks to give it to me is a much preferable option. Once Forks had retrieved the Gek for me, I headed back out of the vault only to be ambushed by the Enclave. Waking up in the Enclave, I was immediately questioned by Colonel Autumn about Project Purity. I told him to go f*** himself before the President interjected, causing a distraction and setting me free. It's at this point I thought I might have a problem. You see, all of my possessions are in the locker on the right. The President tells you to collect your possessions and then go to meet him. I leveled up once again, putting all of my points into speech and taking the 3rd Iron Fist perk. The problem lay in that the door would not open, I thought, unless I collected my equipment. However, I suspected that merely just opening the locker might be enough. I tried this a couple of times, opening and closing the locker without taking my equipment, and sure enough, the door did open. Now, normally at this point, the President will tell everyone to stand down and let you pass through without any hostile activity, which is great, except I already know that eventually they're going to turn on me. So my plan was to essentially punch as many people to death as I could before they did. And because I'd now thinned the ranks, it made killing them all so much easier. By the time I made it to the President, however, I had about 1 HP left, so I would have to be very careful on my way out. At one point I was even taking on 2 Enclave soldiers at the same time with 1 HP, and somehow survived. So initially I had failed to convince him to destroy himself and shut the Enclave down. However, I got around this with my science skill. And this is where the penny dropped.
FEV vial must be secured before door locks are released.
Oh, it seems that I can't get out of this room until I take the FEV from President Eden. I did reload and try again with different dialogue options, hoping for a different outcome. I told him that I would take it, I told him I wouldn't take it, convinced him to blow himself up, but still, one way or the other, I have to take the FEV. So, unfortunately, in my opinion at least, I could not beat Fallout 3 without looting. I could use some mental gymnastics and say, well, the game forces you to take it, and it's technically not looting because I'm not taking it from a corpse or a container, but it is still picking something up from the environment. So I'm interested to know what you guys think about this. Is this actually a fail? In my opinion, yes, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. Still, I'd come this far, so I was definitely going to make it to the end of the game. First, however, I somehow have to get out of the Enclave with a single HP. This wasn't actually too difficult because President Eden's sentry bots actually aid me along the way, so as long as I just stayed behind them, I was able to make it out safely. I also met up with Forks. There was only one task left to do now, which was to follow Liberty Prime to the Jefferson Memorial. I actually got offered some armor here, which I'm really annoyed that I didn't know about, because otherwise I would have done the power armor training. I stayed relatively clear of Liberty Prime on my approach, however I did end up taking some damage. So entering the Jefferson Memorial for the final time, I now had Forks with me. I actually did get involved in combat as I was relatively strong, and I was able to take down a lot of the Enclave soldiers with very little trouble. I then convinced Colonel Autumn to stand down, sent Forks into the Purifier, and did not beat Fallout 3 without looting anything. Okay, so this is just an after edit note that I've just realised while watching the video. I f***ed this one up. Like, even if you were to say that taking the FEV is something the game forces you to do is allowed, I still messed up. See, last time I was in the Rotunda looking for my father, I picked up his voice recordings. And the worst part about that is it's not even mandatory to do that. I could have found the vault without them. So yes, we now have confirmation I did not beat Fallout 3 without looting anything. But I still want your opinion. Had I not done that, would taking the FEV have been allowed? I still say no, but let me know what you think. And finally guys, I'd just like to thank you all so much for watching today. Please like, subscribe and all that good stuff. Leave any comments if you do have any, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.